What happens when an entitled duchess meets a beloved talk show host who refuses to play by royal rules? Well, you're about to witness one of the most explosive celebrity interviews ever recorded, where civility crumbles and true colors shine, brighter than any tiara. This is the story of how Meghan Markle managed to get herself kicked off the Drew Barrymore show in spectacular fashion. Make sure to subscribe and drop a comment below because this tea is piping hot. Started as what should have been a routine promotional appearance. Drew Barrymore, known for her warm, empathetic interviewing style, had invited Meghan Markle to discuss her latest charitable ventures and upcoming projects. The studio audience was packed, cameras were rolling, and everything seemed perfect. For what producers expected to be a feel-good segment, Drew opened with her signature enthusiasm. "I am so excited to have you here today. Your work with various charities has been inspiring, and I know our audience is eager to hear about your latest initiatives." Meghan smiled, but there was something calculated about it. "Thank you for having me, Drew. Though I have to say I'm surprised this is the set you chose for someone of my stature. I was expecting something more, well, elevated." The comment hung in the air like a bad smell. Drew's smile faltered for just a moment before she recovered with professional grace. "Oh, well, this is our main stage where we interview all our guests. It's actually quite lovely, don't you think?" "I suppose it will have to do," Meghan replied, adjusting her posture as if the chair itself was beneath her. "I'm used to rather different accommodations when I do television appearances." Drew tried to steer the conversation back on track. "So tell us about your recent work with literacy programs. I understand you've been visiting schools." "Yes, well, it's something I feel compelled to do. You see, Drew, when you've lived the life I've lived, experienced the things I've experienced, you develop a deeper understanding of what truly matters. Not everyone can relate to that level of consciousness." The studio audience shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't the warm, relatable conversation they'd expected. Drew pressed on. "That's wonderful. Can you share a specific story from one of your school visits?" Meghan's expression sharpened. "I think what's more important to discuss is how the media consistently misrepresents my charitable work. For instance, I noticed your production team didn't fact-check the introduction you just gave. My work extends far beyond literacy programs, Drew. I've been a voice for the voiceless long before I married into royalty." "Of course, I didn't mean to minimize your other work," Drew said, clearly trying to maintain her composure. "Would you like to elaborate on your other initiatives?" "What I'd like is for interviewers to do their homework before having me on their shows," Meghan shot back. "This kind of surface-level questioning is exactly why I rarely do television anymore." "I expected better from you, Drew." The tension in the studio was palpable. Crew members exchanged worried glances while Drew struggled to maintain her professional demeanor. "I apologize if my questions seemed inadequate," Drew said carefully. "Perhaps you could guide the conversation toward what you'd prefer to discuss?" Meghan leaned forward, her voice taking on a condescending tone. "See, that's the problem with most hosts today. They invite guests on without having a clear vision of what the interview should accomplish. In my previous life, before I understood real purpose, I might have just gone along with this. But now I know better." "I see," Drew replied, her famous warmth beginning to crack. "Well, why don't you tell our audience what you think they should know about your work?" "What they should know, Drew, is that authentic change comes from authentic people. Not everyone who claims to be doing good work actually understands what that means. Some of us have been called to this work by our experiences, our growth, our evolution as human beings." Drew's eyebrows raised slightly. "Are you suggesting that other people's charitable work isn't authentic?" "I'm saying that when you've been through what I've been through, when you've had to overcome the obstacles I've faced, you develop a different relationship with service. It's not about appearing on talk shows or getting photo opportunities. It's about real, meaningful change." The studio audience was dead silent now. Drew glanced toward her producers off camera, clearly seeking guidance on how to handle this increasingly uncomfortable situation. "I think our viewers would appreciate hearing about specific programs or initiatives," Drew said, trying once more to salvage the interview. Meghan sighed dramatically. "Drew, I have to ask, did you or your team actually research my background before booking me? Because these questions suggest a fundamental misunderstanding of who I am and what I represent." "We did extensive research," Drew replied, her patience clearly wearing thin. We're very familiar with your work and your background. Then why are we having such a superficial conversation? Meghan demanded. Why aren't we discussing the systemic issues I've been fighting against? The institutional barriers I've had to overcome? The courage it takes to speak truth to power? Drew took a deep breath. Perhaps you could share some specific examples of those fights and barriers? Meghan's laugh was cold. Oh, Drew, if you don't already understand the context of my experiences, I'm not sure this is the right platform for that conversation. Some stories require a certain level of sophistication from the audience. The insult was unmistakable. Drew's famous warmth completely disappeared, replaced by something much sharper. Excuse me, Drew said, her voice dropping to a dangerously quiet level. Are you suggesting that my audience lacks sophistication? Meghan seemed oblivious to the shift in Drew's demeanor. I'm simply saying that not every platform is equipped to handle the depth of conversation that my experiences warrant. Perhaps we should focus on something more accessible. More accessible, Drew repeated slowly, her jaw visibly tightening. You know what, Meghan? I've been doing this for years. I've interviewed everyone from A-list celebrities to Nobel Prize winners, and somehow they've all managed to have meaningful conversations without insulting my audience or my preparation. Drew, I think you're being overly sensitive, Meghan replied with a dismissive wave. I'm simply trying to elevate the discourse. Not everyone is comfortable operating at that level. The studio fell completely silent. Even the camera operators seemed frozen, unsure whether to keep rolling or stop. Drew's famous smile was nowhere to be found. Let me ask you something, Meghan, Drew said, her voice steady but ice cold. Do you hear yourself right now? Do you realize how you're coming across? I'm coming across as someone who knows her worth and isn't willing to compromise on standards, Meghan replied defiantly. If that makes some people uncomfortable, perhaps they should examine why. Drew leaned back in her chair, studying her guest with new eyes. You know what makes me uncomfortable? Guests who come on my show and treat my team, my audience, and me with disrespect while hiding behind pseudo-intellectual nonsense. Meghan's eyes flashed. Pseudo-intellectual? Drew, I don't think you understand who you're talking to. Oh, I understand perfectly, Drew shot back. I'm talking to someone who walked into my studio, insulted my set, dismissed my questions, belittled my audience, and somehow managed to make a conversation about charity work entirely about herself. That's not what happened, Meghan protested, but her voice had lost some of its confidence. Isn't it? Drew challenged. Because from where I'm sitting, you've spent the last 10 minutes telling me how inadequate everyone else is while offering absolutely nothing of substance yourself. Meghan straightened in her chair, her royal training kicking in. Drew, I came here in good faith to discuss important work. If you're not prepared to have that conversation at the appropriate level, perhaps we should end this interview. The appropriate level, Drew repeated with a bitter laugh. You want to know what the appropriate level is? It's treating people with basic respect. It's answering questions without making everything about your own superiority. It's remembering that you're a guest on someone else's show. I am hardly someone else, Meghan snapped, her composure finally cracking. I am a duchess. I am a philanthropist. I am a voice for change. I don't need to be lectured by a talk show host about appropriateness. The studio gasped audibly. Drew's eyes widened in disbelief. A talk show host. Drew's voice rose for the first time. You're sitting on my talk show, on my stage, in front of my audience, and you're going to dismiss me as just a talk show host. I'm simply stating facts, Meghan replied, but she was clearly rattled by Drew's reaction. Here's a fact for you, Drew said, standing up from her chair. I've built a career on treating people with kindness and respect. I've created a space where guests feel safe to be vulnerable and authentic. And you've managed to turn that into some kind of intellectual competition where you're the only winner. Meghan remained seated, but her hands gripped the armrests of her chair. Drew, I think you're overreacting to what was meant to be constructive. Feedback. Constructive feedback. Drew's voice was incredulous. You've insulted my set, my questions, my audience, my intelligence, and my profession. What exactly was constructive about any of that? I was trying to help you understand how to conduct a more meaningful interview, Meghan said, her tone becoming more defensive. By telling me I'm inadequate? By suggesting my audience is too unsophisticated for your stories? By implying that I didn't do my job properly? Drew's voice was rising with each question. You're putting words in my mouth, Meghan protested. Am I? Drew turned to address the camera directly. Let's review, shall we? You criticized my set the moment you sat down. You questioned my research and preparation. You dismissed my questions as surface level. You suggested my audience couldn't handle sophisticated conversation. Should I continue? Meghan's face was flushing red. That's not how I meant those comments. Then how did you mean them? Drew demanded, turning back to face her guest. Because I'm trying really hard to find another interpretation. I meant that I have high standards, Meghan said weakly. High standards, Drew repeated. Do those high standards include basic courtesy? Because from where I'm sitting, they seem to exclude it entirely. The tension in the room was electric. Crew members were whispering urgently to each other, clearly unsure how to handle the situation. Drew's producers were frantically trying to get her attention from behind the cameras. Drew, I think we should take a break, Meghan suggested, finally, seeming to realize the gravity of the situation. Oh, now you want to take a break? Drew's laugh was sharp and humorless. After spending 15 minutes making this interview all about how everyone else is failing to meet your standards. I never said that, Meghan insisted. You didn't have to say it directly. You've been saying it with every dismissive comment, every condescending tone, every suggestion that we're all somehow beneath your level of understanding. Meghan stood up abruptly. I don't have to sit here and be attacked like this. Attacked? Drew's voice reached a new pitch. You think being called out for your behavior is an attack? What would you call what you've been doing to me for the past 15 minutes? I was trying to have an intelligent conversation, Meghan shot back, her voice shaking with indignation. If you can't handle that level of discourse, that's not my problem. Drew stared at her guest in complete disbelief. Intelligent conversation? You haven't said one intelligent thing since you sat down. You've just spent 20 minutes talking about how superior you are without actually demonstrating any of that supposed superiority. How dare you? Meghan hissed, her royal composure completely shattered. I have accomplished more than you could ever dream of. I have used my platform to change lives, to make a real difference in this world. Then why couldn't you talk about any of it? Drew challenged. I gave you every opportunity to discuss your work, your causes, your accomplishments. Instead, you chose to spend our time together putting everyone else down. Meghan's face was now completely red. Because your questions were beneath the level of conversation I'm accustomed to having. I tried to guide you towards something more substantial. By insulting me and my team. Drew's voice was incredulous. By dismissing my audience as unsophisticated? That was your idea of guidance. I was trying to help you understand how to interview someone of my caliber, Meghan snapped. Drew laughed, but there was no humor in it. Someone of your caliber? Let me tell you about caliber, Meghan. Caliber is treating people with respect regardless of their position. Caliber is lifting others up instead of tearing them down. Caliber is having the grace to be a good guest when someone invites you onto their show. Don't lecture me about grace, Meghan retorted. I've shown more grace in the face of adversity than you could possibly understand. Grace? Drew's eyebrows. Shut up. Is that what you call what you've displayed here today? Because I would call it entitled, condescending, and frankly embarrassing. Meghan stepped closer to Drew, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. You have no idea what I've been through. You have no idea what it's like to be constantly under attack, to have your every word twisted and manipulated. And you have no idea what it's like to work your way up from nothing, Drew fired back. To build something meaningful through hard work and treating people with respect. You want to talk about being under attack? Try being a child star in Hollywood and then building a career that lasts decades. That's completely different, Meghan scoffed. You don't understand the unique pressures of my position. Your position? Drew's voice rose again. You mean the position where you married into one of the most privileged families on earth? Where you had every advantage handed to you? That position? I earned everything I have, Meghan declared, by marrying a prince. Drew shot back without thinking. The studio went dead silent. It was a direct hit, and everyone knew it. Meghan's face went white, then red again. How dare you reduce my accomplishments to my marriage? I was successful long before I met Harry. Then why can't you talk about any of those accomplishments without making it about how everyone else is inadequate? Drew demanded. Because I'm tired of having to prove myself to people who will never understand what real achievement looks like, Meghan exploded. Real achievement? Drew's voice was now shaking with anger. Real achievement is what my audience does every day, working multiple jobs to support their families, volunteering in their communities without cameras rolling, raising children with love and respect. You want to talk about real achievement? It's not sitting in a palace complaining about how hard your life is. Meghan was trembling with rage. You don't know anything about my life or my struggles. I know enough to recognize someone who's lost touch with reality, Drew replied coldly. I know enough to see someone who thinks their problems are more important than everyone else's. That's it, Meghan declared, ripping off her microphone. I'm done with this ambush. Ambush, Drew called after her as Meghan started to storm off the set. This was supposed to be a friendly interview about your charity work. You turned it into an ambush the moment you opened your mouth. Meghan spun around, her eyes blazing. I came here in good faith to discuss important issues, and you've turned it into a personal attack. You came here and immediately started attacking my set, my questions, my preparation, and my audience, Drew shot back. The only person who turned this into something ugly was you. I refuse to be treated this way, Meghan declared dramatically. Then maybe you should start treating other people better, Drew replied. Security, please escort Ms. Markle out. Two security guards appeared as if from nowhere, clearly having been signaled by the producers who had watched this train wreck unfold in real time. This is outrageous, Meghan protested as the guards approached. Do you know who I am? Yes, Drew said wearily. You're someone who just got herself kicked off my show for being incredibly rude to everyone here. You'll regret this, Meghan called out as security began to escort her toward the exit. My lawyers will be in touch. Looking forward to it, Drew replied sarcastically. I'm sure the footage will speak for itself. As Meghan was led away, still protesting loudly, Drew turned to address her stunned studio audience. Well, that was unexpected, she said, trying to inject some levity into the situation. I think we all learned something important today about how not to be a guest on a talk show. The audience, still in shock, managed a few nervous laughs. You know, in all my years of doing this show, I've never had to have someone removed, Drew continued, her composure slowly returning. But I think it's important that we maintain standards of basic decency and respect for each other. She looked directly into the camera. To my viewers at home, I want you to know that this is not how interviews normally go. Most of my guests are lovely, respectful people who are here to have genuine conversations about things that matter to them. Drew paused, collecting her thoughts. What you witnessed today was what happens when someone confuses being important with being important enough to treat others poorly. And that's a lesson I think we can all learn from. The studio audience began to applaud, slowly at first, then building to genuine enthusiasm. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I'll be speaking with someone who truly understands what it means to make a difference in the world. Drew announced that as the cameras stopped rolling, the entire studio erupted in chatter about what they had just witnessed. This was definitely going to be one interview that nobody would ever forget. The footage would become legendary, not for showcasing Meghan's charitable work, but for revealing something entirely different about her character. So there you have it. The complete story of how Meghan Markle managed to get herself kicked off the Drew Barrymore show in the most spectacular fashion possible. It's a masterclass in how not to conduct yourself as a guest, and a reminder that no amount of titles or status can excuse basic rudeness and disrespect. What do you think? Did Drew handle this situation appropriately, or should she have been more patient with her difficult guest? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more unbelievable celebrity stories like this one.